Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete podcast, hosted by yours truly, Rob Martin. Welcome to Unpacking the Athlete, a podcast dedicated to diving deep into what makes athletes who they are. Today's guest is a professional cross-country mountain biker who races for the U.S. at UCI Mountain Bike World Cups, as well as other races around the world. Here is a list of her recent accomplishments. And I may pronounce this wrong, but maybe you can let me know if I did in the comments. She won the Volcat Placha de Aero 1 and 2 mountain bike races this year. She took second in the US Nats short track race this year. She won the US Nats Elite Women Cross Country race this year. And she has also had so many stellar performances in the World Cups and at other bike races this year, 2022. She is part of the Orange Seal team. Our guest today is Savilia Blunk, who spends time training in Colorado. Welcome, Savilia. I am excited to learn more about you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I have some funny questions here to break the ice, and I'm going to get started. You have to race another top female American rider. Who's it going to be?
Gosh, I don't know. We have such a strong group of women right now, and I've been racing them all summer, but I would say Gwen Gibson and I, we go way back. Like, we both started racing pretty much at the same time. She was in the SoCal NICA League. I was in the NorCal NICA League, and now we're racing World Cups together. So it's pretty fun to race her and kind of see where we're both at now and where we started.
Now that you know who you've picked and you know her strengths and your strengths, you have to race on a trail that you get to pick. What trail is that going to be?
Does it have to be a race course?
Just a trail, whatever you want. Doesn't have to be a race course.
Maybe something like in Bellingham, or no, actually maybe something in Durango. I think that would be fair. Yeah, I don't know. I know this trail so well in Durango, so that would be pretty fun.
Last, you get to pick what type of bike you're going to race on, and here are your 3 choices. 1, 12-speed carbon rigid fat bike. 2, a single-speed hardtail carbon mountain bike. Or the full suspension mountain bike from Walmart.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever ridden a real single-speed bike, so I think that would be pretty fun. I'd want to try that. And I love a hardtail. So
perfect. So you guys will be racing on.
Okay, when is this happening?
Yeah, right. We got to get a hold of Gwen and set this up.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's move on and get a little serious. I'd like to talk about your 9th place and 6th place that you had in the short track in snowshoe in the XCO race. And what kind of feeling did you have in front of the home crowd with that going on? I mean, how cool was that?
That was such a cool experience. I haven't really gotten the opportunity to race short track at the World Cups this year because I don't have enough UCI points. But after nationals, I made it into the top 40, and the top 40 can race short track. So that was my first World Cup short track race, and yeah, it was such a cool experience. I mean, I always watched them last year, and at snowshoe, it's special too because you're quite out there. Like, it's not the easiest place to get to, but it's always so cool how many fans show up and how like they come from so far just to watch the races. So that was pretty special. And then yeah, we got some crazy weather. It ended up being a total mud race, which to pick one race to be a mud race, I wouldn't choose snowshoe, but it was it made things super interesting and turned into a really exciting race. Like, it started out, it was pretty dry when we started, and then like lap 2, 3, 4, it was just downpouring and the conditions completely changed. So it was really exciting because I haven't been able to race short track at previous World Cups this year. I've been starting like 5th or 6th row, which is another added challenge. But I raced short track at snowshoe, so I was able to start 2nd row, which was a really, really nice benefit. And then got to kind of race from the front. and really show what I was capable of. So for me, it was a really special race, and yeah, really fun to be out there with the American fans for sure.
I was there Sunday watching you guys in person as things deteriorated. Did you worry about the rock gardens and then the steep, rooty section through the woods? I mean, those conditions got pretty bad pretty quick. I just kind of wonder what went through your head as that happened for those particular sections, because some of the course was fine still, but there were some sketchy areas on that course when it started to rain.
For sure. I think I was most worried or stressed about that super steep Rudy section. And I think that in a race like that, I mean, the first lap, people are kind of going left and right, like making mistakes. And I was able to kind of see that and really kind of check myself, because as the rain started, it's just so important to like be conservative, and not risk too much, but also find that it's kind of a funny thing to explain, because you're finding that line between pushing and not pushing too much. I think that I was just trying to be really careful on the descents, and then push hard on the climbs, and really just minimize mistakes, because everyone was going to make them. I was going to make them. It was just, that's just bound to happen with that kind of weather, but just minimizing them and not stressing over unclipping or slipping your front tire a little bit, and just trying to kind of stay calm and keep going forward.
And that worked for you.
Yeah, I had a great race. I really love those conditions. Like, I didn't grow up riding super wet, slippery terrain like that, but I think over the years I've kind of almost like tricked myself to thinking that like I like it, which has benefited me in the long run at mud races like that. And now I kind of embrace it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited about this. I might be terrified, but I'm going to say I'm excited.
Yeah, in Michigan here, most of our trails, if it rains, closed. So we don't really get any kind of practice riding muddy, rainy conditions. So when we watched you guys doing that, it was just interesting to see the different lines. And even with different lines, people were still making it down some of the crazy sections. Can you walk us through Worlds? I mean, 13th place was really amazing. I'd like to hear maybe more about the start of that race and how the start went off, and then maybe about the finish and how the finish went.
So I went over to Europe actually a week early. I was planning to do this Swiss Cup as kind of a warm-up race, but second night there, I actually got a stomach bug. For the first 5 days, I was not really riding, not really eating at all. I wasn't really even sure that I was going to race Worlds at some points. I was trying to stay optimistic, but I wasn't really recovering as fast as I wished. 2 days before short track, I started to feel pretty normal. And yeah, race short track, that was kind of like just an opener, just to blow it out. And because I hadn't really ridden much at all that week. So I raced short track. That was on Friday. And unlike World Cups, the short track finish at World Champs doesn't deem your call-up position for the XC. So I was still, for the cross country, I was still, I didn't have super good UCI points. So I think I was 6th row called to the line. But going back, short track on Friday went pretty good. It was the first hard effort I'd done in a week and a half. But it was really nice to kind of blow out the system and get that race speed again. And then I was trying not to have too many expectations going into the race, because my prep really had changed when I got sick. I really just wanted to give it everything I had. And I knew I was starting 6th row. So that was always like, it's just a really big added stress to kind of think about how you're going to navigate that start, because so much can happen. There's so many riders around you, and you just avoiding crashes and trying to get to the front as fast as possible is really stressful. So yeah, at the start, I lined up, I think I was far right, and I had a really good start in the end. I think I was top 20 going into the first lap after the start loop, and feeling pretty good. I mean, the speeds are so high that, of course, like I came around going into the first full lap, and I was like, oh, like I need to tune it back a little bit. And it was really hot that day also, so cooling was important. I mean, I ended up feeling super good. And that course, I'd never ridden that course before. It is so hard because there's like basically two long, steep climbs, which is kind of unique because a lot of our races are really punchy up and down short climbs. So not really a course I would say suited me. And then like really, really steep descents. And that day it was super dry, super blown out. So I had a great race. I was super proud of myself. Like I was really hoping for a top 10, but with everything that went in the week before the race and just not really, just really kind of having to readjust my expectations, I was really happy to finish that. And we had a really good battle the last few laps with Gwen and Kate, actually. So I think we had 4 Americans in the top 15. So yeah, it was a really, really special day for the U.S.
Heck yeah. I think there's been a few races where we've had 4 Americans in the top 15 this year, which has been, I mean, it's been awesome to watch. And we've got the young coyotes, and every time we go to practice, they're just like, did you see? You know, and it's just really cool that what you guys are doing right now.
Thanks. Yeah, it's exciting to be out there racing with them. And I remember at the snowshoe short track, it was like Haley, Kate, Gwen, and I just like charging on the front, and it's just a really cool feeling when those are your U.S. teammates.
Can we move on to the short track at Val de Sole, if I'm saying that right? Because you went from a 4th row start there, I think, to 10th place. And that set you up for a great start on Sunday's race. What was your plan in the short track race when you were in that 4th row, and did you stick to your plan?
Like I said, I've had a lot of practice starting from the back this year, and in training, that's also been a really big focus of this year to work on my start and acceleration. So yeah, I started 4th row, and my goal for short track was really to have a clean start, get to the front as fast as possible, and then really sit in. I think that I struggle with short track because I like it, but I always find myself in that kind of yo-yoing position off kind of at the back of the group where I'm actually spending a lot more energy than the rest. And my goal was to not be in that position, but I ended up kind of finding myself there again halfway through the race. But I was just focused on having a good start and then conserving as much energy as I could.
The yo-yo, wasting energy trying to catch back up after these slowdowns, and I get that, absolutely. Let's look at U.S. Nats this year and how winning that race was, and maybe tell us a little bit about that.
We were back at Winter Park for the 3rd year, I think. That race, if you've never been, it's at 9,000 feet, and it's very high at the ski resort. The course kind of is basically a long fire road climb, maybe 10 or 12 minutes, and then a long single track descent back down. So it's a very unique cross-country course, not anything like a World Cup or really any other XC races that I've done. But I was focused on that race. It was a pretty big goal of the season. So I didn't go to the Andorra World Cup, and I spent a lot of time back in Durango preparing at altitude for it. I went into it, I mean, gosh, racing at that elevation is just different. Like you can't push yourself as hard as you can at sea level or even at like 7,000 feet. It's just very different. So pacing it is really tricky, because if you go like too far into the red zone too early, you just cannot recover. It started out, Kate was there, so it was kind of me, Kate, and Gwen the first lap, and then Kate and I broke away, and then I was feeling good. And again, it's kind of a weird course where like you can't really have a super. I felt like it's not one where you watch a World Cup and you see these people just attacking like super hard accelerations all the time, just going up and then resting and up and resting. But at that elevation, like I personally don't really feel like I can race that way. So to me, it was almost kind of like a slow motion, just like diesel effort in a way. I think it was the second lap, and I was feeling good on the climb and just kind of turned the screws a little bit and pulled away from Kate. And then from there, just held it. So I was super happy to win that day and exciting to be there and have my parents were there. It was special. And yeah, just a weird course though. You know, it doesn't really feel like an XCO race, but it's also not a marathon race. So I don't know. Yeah, hopefully maybe next year they'll bring it down to sea level and we'll have a shorter lap that's better for spectating and maybe more exciting for the racers.
I can attest to the hard to breathe. I did the race last year, and the climb, I mean, it basically feels like you just climb up and then you bomb down. And there might be another couple of climbs that are smaller in there on your way back down, but it basically feels like you just go up and then you come back down. And then you go up and you come back down. And I think I think we had to do 4 laps, maybe. Does that sound right? Yeah. I felt like I could stop my bike on the gravel climb on the 4th lap, and I felt like I could lay down on the ground and go right to sleep. And I've never felt that way before. It was the weirdest feeling. It is definitely hard to catch your breath and to stay pushing during a race like that. So I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it's different. And like your body responds differently. I mean, I would talk to a couple people actually. We were all talking about like how hard it was. And this girl was like, yeah, I got to the top of the climb and my arms were like numb. I've never felt that before. And I was like, yeah, actually, I felt that too. It was kind of weird. But your body just can't get the oxygen it needs.
No. And that's another thing why I don't think I ever want to try the Leadville thing, just because it's similar and it's longer.
Yeah, that is gnarly.
Let's rewind, and maybe you can tell us how you got started on the bike and how did that happen? When and how?
I grew up in a really rural, small town in Northern California. I have 2 older brothers, and my dad, he grew up riding and just kind of shredding with his friends. So he really got us into the bikes, and I had 2 older brothers, so that helped kind of push me and spark that competitive edge for sure. I can give them credit for that. And then, yeah, we were always like active outdoors doing all kinds of stuff. And then I started racing in high school with the NICA NorCal League. And I was going to a high school at the time that had actually the first all-girls high school mountain bike team in the nation at the time. So we were racing NorCal, and that's kind of how I started to get just racing more often, more frequently, getting that experience. And then kind of started to race more domestically and did some international trips with USAC. And then it kind of took off, and I just did more and more racing, raced my first national championships at Mammoth, another race at 9,000 feet, I think. So that was brutal. Then from there, I made the decision to go to college in Durango at Fort Lewis College. And that was kind of with the goal in mind to continue pursuing racing and also get an education, which was important to me. When I moved to Durango, there's so many cyclists in Durango. And I was just constantly riding with people and being challenged by people. And it really helped my cycling. And I was also able to go to school and get an education at the same time. So for me, it was a really good place to be and develop as a cyclist. I still live there now, kind of part-time. My boyfriend Cole and I are based there 4 or 5 months out of the year. I don't know. It's hard to tell now. We're really on the road so much. But yeah, I call that, it's one of my homes for sure.
What made you decide to go to Fort Lewis? Was it because of the cycling community there and probably because of the good education?
Yeah, after high school, I honestly struggled a lot with what I wanted to do next. I decided to take a gap semester. I was deferred from Whitman College, actually, up here in Washington. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was a lot of pressure leaving high school because everybody seemed to know what they wanted to do, and they were all going off to college. I decided I stayed home and I just worked and saved up money for college. And then kind of halfway through that semester, I went to Worlds actually that fall, and I met Cole. Well, I'd known him already, but I met him and a couple other people from Durango, and they really they really talked up Fort Lewis College and being in Durango. So I went home and I was like, I should really look into that a little bit more. I looked into it. I went out to visit it, and I ended up actually going there the following semester. I started my freshman year. I really fell in love with the place as soon as I got there because there's just so many trails, so many opportunities to ride and people to ride with, which is really never something that I had. And then I was able to also get an education at the same time, which was really important to me. Like I knew some people who had just focused on their career and just gone forward racing, but having that balance was really important to me. In high school, it was super stressful at times trying to balance school, social life, training. But to me, it was also a really beneficial thing. And yeah, I mean, you don't race bikes your whole life. So I really wanted to have something else that I was passionate about and that I was pursuing.
So it was a good thing that your dad was a shredder, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's
For
cool.
sure.
Does he still ride?
Yeah, both my parents actually, I actually got them new mountain bikes for their upgrades. I don't think they had new bikes since I was a child. So last year I gave them my old bikes. Now they have upgrades and they're shredding more and riding together. So they're getting back into it, and it's really fun to go home and do some rides with them. And
That's really cool. When you were up and coming, did you look up to anyone? Did you have a hero or an idol, or do you still?
yeah, when I was kind of getting into racing and looking up to the pros, Leah Davison has always been a huge idol of mine and a big role model. And I actually was teammates with her in 2019, which kind of made my dreams. And yeah, no, we're really close now, and she's just awesome, and she's kind of moving into a new transition of her career. But yeah, she's a super special person to have in the cycling world.
That's cool. Especially when you get to meet that person and then be teammates with the person.
Yeah, it was fun. We had fun.
Can you take us back to your first ever race and maybe tell us when and what that was and walk us through that experience?
Yes. So my first race was the Rockhopper Classic in Vacaville, California. So it's like a little bit, it's kind of near Sacramento if you're familiar with that city. My brother was racing at the time, and he's 3 years older. So he was like doing that race with his team. And I went and I wanted to do a race too to be like him. And so I signed up, and I think it was like one of my first or second, no, it was like one of my first or second rides with clip-in pedals. And you might be able to tell where this is going. But yeah, no, we started, and it starts on this pavement, and then we hit single track, and it's this narrow trail climb, and the left side is like kind of this embankment. And I was riding up, had to kind of wiggle through these like little rocks, hit my pedal, didn't clip out, and I go tumbling down the left side of the kind of embankment. And this is like maybe 5 minutes into the race, and this race was like 2 hours long. That's how it started. I still have a scar from my chain ring on the back of my leg. So, great memories. I think I like picked myself up. I was probably crying. I think this lady was like racing, and she passed me and asked me if I was okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And so I reluctantly just get back on my bike. And then it was such a hard race. Like I think I stopped multiple times and just like stopped and caught my breath, and then finished second out of 2. So pretty big accomplishment there. I think I was like 12 minutes back or something, but yeah, no, it was that was my first race. Yeah, Rockhopper Classic. So I think I did that one a couple more times, but yeah, I'm not sure if they do it anymore, but it was a pretty cool event.
So even with the crash down the side and catching the chain ring into your leg, you still came back and continued to race.
Yeah, something like that.
What has been your most memorable race on the bike? And maybe walk us through that.
I feel like it's that race because I think I was 12 and I still remember it really clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also like so many other, recently Worlds was really memorable. Just this year, especially, I think my first year racing in the elite category, and the World Cups are just with the fans, and there's just so much energy. So every race is like it feels like such a show, and it's really exciting to be a part of. And yeah, I love it.
Who has been your biggest competition along the way? And I think I might know. And can you take us through a race where you went head to head? Kind of maybe talk about how that went, the back and forth.
Yeah, gosh. I would say Gwen again because, like I said, we've been racing since we were like 15 together, and not always like we have never been on the same team, but we've done some like USA trips with the national team together, and just seeing each other progress throughout the years has been really cool, and to see where we are now. Gosh, a race where we've been head to head. I mean, honestly, recently in these races where we're like at Worlds and a couple races earlier this year where we're all battling together. I think Snowshoe is one of them. Those would be good examples. It's been just like really cool and motivating to see the strength of the US team. So
when you guys are battling in big races like that, do you talk to each other? Do you say, hey, maybe I'll pull a little bit, you pull a little bit, we'll work through this together and see what we can do, if we can pick some people off?
yeah, I think last weekend I was with Haley for a hot second. Wasn't very long. Um, and like it kind of just depends of the nature of the course. Like at Val di Sole, there's this long flat section where if you can kind of echelon and work with somebody else, it can be beneficial because you'll grow the gap from whoever's behind you. So in that instance, like we were working together a little bit, but gosh, yeah, it really kind of just depends on the course. And a lot of these courses are so punchy up and down that often like it doesn't really make sense to work together in that way of like drafting. But I'm excited for the future because I think just this later summer we've all found each other like, oh, we're racing together, like we're all up here. And I think hopefully next year and in the years in the future, like we know we're all up there, and maybe we can harness some team tactics and work together, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, it's also hard. We're all on different teams and we're not like congregating and talking pre-race about anything. And also mountain biking is a lot different than road in that way. So
yep.
Yeah, but it's definitely really cool to all be up there, and I think there's some potential for sure.
Why do you love the sport, and what keeps you going?
I love this sport, I think, because of just how much you can just constantly improve things. You're always learning, you're always growing as an athlete and a person. And it's just a never ending process of learning and growing. And it keeps me really motivated and inspired. I also love all the people that I have been able to meet through it, and the US community. It's so different in Europe, and it's really nice to come back here. And like later this year, I'm doing a couple domestic races, and I'm just really excited to be reunited with the US cycling community and be in that environment. It's a really good one.
Do you incorporate strength training into your routine?
I actually don't. I have like a little activation and mobility routine that I do pre-ride most training days. This year I don't do strength, but I ride 100% on my mountain bike. I don't have another bike, so haven't been training on the road as much as I have in years past. And so for me, just that like training on the mountain bike on trails every day is the best strength training I think that I could do for my sport. So yeah, that's what I focus on.
Do you have any things that you use to help your recovery? It could be supplements, it could be devices.
Yeah, for sure. I'm working with the feed, and I always travel with Normatex. Kind of a big thing to lug around, but I think I swear by them. So really like using those. And then I do use a little massage gun, but Cole and I share it, and usually he takes it when I leave, so I don't have that. And then, yeah, then just a roller. Like I like to either have a ball, like a sphere roller, or just the normal ones. Use that on my glutes a lot. And then that's pretty much it. Like I keep it pretty simple, and we're on the road so much that I really try to keep it minimal and like something that I can always move with and travel with. So it's not super crazy.
I do like the compression boots as well. Someone gave me a tip this year while we were racing, because we were off the front of the group and it was just him and I. He's like, "Hey, have you ever put them on and then just elevated your legs?" I said, "No, I've never done that." And then he goes, "Man, that's a game changer." So I've been doing that with my feet elevated, and it just seems to help even more. So I don't know if that's something
Wow.
that you've
Yeah.
tried.
I don't think I have, but yeah, that sounds intense.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah.
If there was one race that you could do over, what race would that be, and what would you have done differently?
What's most fresh in my mind is last weekend at Val di Sole. I had a pretty big tire slice. I think on the third lap, I was riding eighth or ninth, but the podium was right there, and I was feeling really good. And yeah, it was just such an unfortunate thing. I was trying to close a gap on the descent and just pushing so hard. And last weekend, it was super dry, super blown out course. So the rocks were just like so exposed and raw. Front tire, just huge slash. And there was no way that yeah, I could do anything about it. I was in kind of the worst spot on course too. So I had to run a little more than half a lap, I think. And yeah, just really let that podium slip away. It's bike racing. It totally happens, and maybe it was avoidable, but in the moment I didn't think of any other line. So it's
Right.
hard to say if I could have avoided that, but that would have been nice to have had a clean race, but we got the future, so
Yep.
it's okay.
Do you think a beefier tire may have helped, or no?
No, I really don't. Like it was just this sharp rock that I had hit a couple times on the laps before and just rim shotted, but this time I was just like charging, really trying to close this gap, and yeah, I mean, completely redlined and not thinking about anything else. So I think it was inevitable. It could have happened to anyone. And that day also, yeah, there were a lot of tire issues that day for everyone else. So it was
Yeah.
just kind of a relentless course.
I watched both races, so I did see a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Do you do anything pre-competition to get yourself ready or motivated? Do you have any rituals, routines, any music, visualization techniques, or anything?
I think the week before a big race, I just really try to relax, and especially if I'm over in Europe, out of my like routine kind of and home. I really just try to be as comfortable as I can and just kind of keep the day-to-day things as normal as possible. And yeah, I mean, I journal a little bit sometimes, and I have my pre-race playlist that definitely goes on during the warm-up. But yeah, other than that, I just really try to kind of relax, and especially for these big races and this last block, just like really celebrate it. I mean, the week of a race, the work is done. There's nothing else that is going to make you faster for that race that weekend. So just celebrating the work that you've done and getting excited to then be able to go show it.
What other events do you have left on the calendar this year? I think you said domestic. Maybe explain a little bit about what you have going on.
I am headed to Schwamigan next week. It's the second to last race in the Grand Prix series, which I'm not in, but my boyfriend Cole is. So I'll be racing that. And then we have some time, and then we'll race Big Sugar gravel in Bentonville in late October, and then finish it off with Iceman in November. It's only 3 more races, but spaced out for a couple more months. We went to Iceman last year and capped the season off there for the first time. And yeah, definitely going back. It was a super cool experience, and we'll see what's in store for us this year. Last year, it was definitely a nice man. So maybe we'll get the real treatment this year, but who knows?
Nice man for sure it was. And for those who don't know, Iceman is up in Traverse City, Michigan. It's actually a really great atmosphere if anyone's looking to do that race.
Yeah, it is. It was crazy. Like, it's a point to point, but the last like 3K is just lined with people and just roaring. It was crazy. It was like louder than a World Cup. It was awesome.
That's cool. You mentioned those races kind of finishing your season out. Is your training going to stay the same for those races as it was for the UCI races and the World Race and the Nats, or is it going to be dialed back a little bit?
I think like right now before Schwab again, I'm kind of taking some time recovering, getting over jet lag and stuff, but we're still kind of trying to keep the speed up and do some high intensity stuff. And then, yeah, for the next races, like Iceman is a shorter race. It's about hour and a half, I think. But yeah, for Big Sugar, we'll definitely probably do some longer rides. But for this time, I think, especially right now, I'm just trying to just enjoy riding the bike and not really stress too much about, the intervals and all that. These races are just a lot less pressure for me. So just enjoying riding, making sure I'm still enjoying training and not getting burnt out. It's been a long season, so definitely keeping that balance in mind and just enjoying it. So
I like that idea, just enjoying it, not stressing out.
Yeah, it's definitely important.
One trail in Durango, what one is your favorite, and what one would you consider a must ride if people were visiting Durango?
I love this loop that starts at the very start of the Colorado Trail. You go up the Colorado Trail to this like lookout called Goody's Rest, and then this ripping descent called Hoffine's Dry Fork. And it's a nice like hour and a half, hour 45 loop that I love it. It has a nice view, a good gradual climb, and it's not like too techy, but has a really fun descent. And then closer to town is like Sailing Hawks is always one I really like to do intervals on, and it's kind of the more challenging, like rocky technical trail network in town. So that's a good one. And those are probably my 2 favorites.
Give people something to do if they decide to go visit there.
Yeah, for sure.
If you were to give advice to younger athletes that look up to you, what would it be?
My advice would be to enjoy riding your bike. If you're into riding the bike, to enjoy that, but also to explore other things and not be afraid to try something else. If, your friends are really into soccer, but maybe you don't want to do soccer because you want to focus on riding the bike. But for me, I regret not letting myself do more stuff because I was so focused on the bike and like racing and like, oh, I have to ride this weekend because I have a race coming up or something. But really, like, you're young, like this is the time to try these things and just enjoy that time with your friends. If you want to go to the beach or want to go on a hike, like this is the time to try that, and it's not going to take away from riding. It's actually probably going to help you. So not being afraid to try new things and make sure you're enjoying riding the bike.
I think that expands even to adults that maybe take the racing seriously and I've got to do this workout on this day, but your buddies just asked you, hey, you want to come do a ride with us? But you're like, no, I got to do this workout because I've got a race coming up. Maybe just have a little more fun and do those things with your friends. Like you said, try something different, do something different. I like that advice. Where can people connect with you if they'd like to connect with you on social media?
Most active on Instagram. It's Savilia Blunk. And I have Strava, but I don't upload that much, but sometimes I do. So if you want.
So find her on Instagram, maybe Strava as well. Savilia, it was amazing to watch you and the other American riders the last half of the season battling with women around the world and doing so well. I will continue to follow your journey on the bike, as will some of the coyotes on the team here. I appreciate your time today. Good luck with your last few races in this year, and good luck next year in 2023.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Well, hopefully see you at Iceman.
I think we will be up there.
Awesome. We'll see you there.
You have just listened to Unpacking the Athlete.